Anytime there is a problem, there are different solutions, and one solution is to give up. In this case, what if you want to give up, but you still want to make something that starts in the center with has a nice tight hole? The solution is a slip knot. Now there are two ways to make a slip knot. One way is to start from your working end of yarn where your ball is, and if you flip it around and tuck it under and make a slip knot that way. I don't do it very often, so I have to think about it. Turn my yarn around. So you're going to flip it around and tuck it under. If you make your slip knot this direction and you pull on your tail to tighten it up, it does slide when you're first getting started. Right now it slides, but once I take this working yarn and start crocheting with it, it's not going to slide anymore because this side doesn't slide. And if it's part of your chain, that might be a good thing. You might not want it to tighten up. But if you're working your stitches into this loop in order to make a circle, if you want it to tighten up, you want the loop to tighten up. So in order to do that, you have to tie it a special way. You make sure that your tail is on one side and your working yarn is on the other. And if you're left-handed, turn it around this way. It doesn't really matter which direction you go. What is important is remembering the tail. So you're going to take the tail end of the yarn and you're going to make your circle. And as you see, the tail end of my yarn is on top, and that's what's important. And then you take that tail and stick it up just a little bit through the loop. So, and then you pull on the working end of yarn to tighten the knot. If you tie your slip knot this way, then when you pull on the tail, it tightens up. When you pull on the knot itself, it loosens up. And this will give you control over it after you've crocheted into the slip knot. So if you're going to use a slip knot instead of a magic circle, you're going to need to start with some chains, but you will start with one extra chain. So if you crochet back and forth, as you know, at the beginning of a row that has single crochets, you chain one. At the beginning of a row of doubles, you typically chain two. If you're doing doubles, you typically chain three, and so on. So we're going to do single crochets, which means we would need one chain to bring our yarn up to the height of the single crochets. We also need a second chain to work with. So you want one more chain than you would normally put in front of those stitches on a row. Since we're doing single crochets and I would normally put one chain, I need two chains. So chain one and chain two. So if you normally say you're doing double crochets and you normally put 3 chains at the beginning of your double crochet row, then you would need 4 chains at the very beginning. From here, you're going to work into that slip knot. So you're going to put your hook in the slip knot, and you can make it bigger if you need to. Pull up a loop, and you're going to start making your single crochets. In this case, we're going to make, because we're going to make single crochets. Because typically we're dealing with amigurumi right now. Okay, so 3. And as you can see, as I'm crocheting this, my loop is getting bigger as it needs to accommodate the stitches and me working into it. And you want that because you need to be able to crochet into it. So that's not a bad thing. You just want to make sure you don't lose your tail, and I still have tail sticking out here. If it's opening up and you find your tail disappearing while you crochet, just take your tail and hold on to the knot and kind of pull it tight again. Once you get your single crochets in there, and in this case, I'm going to slip stitch over here, whatever it tells you to do at the end of your round. So if it tells you to slip stitch, you slip stitch. If you're working in a spiral and it tells you to just start the next round in that stitch, then put your single crochet in there And then you pull it tight with the tail, and there it is. You have a nice tight hole that you cannot see through, and your stuffing's not going to come through. And it works. It works. You do need to make sure that you secure this behind your stitches before you stuff your animal, so that it won't loosen up through use, because this part will loosen up. See, I can get my finger through it. And if I worked at it, I can open it right back up. So if you don't secure that back end at all, it's not going to stay tight when you use this. So make sure you weave in your tail end if this is the method you use. Thank you for watching, and we'll talk to you again later. Bye-bye.